This podcast has bad words.
What if your spouse is not on board with minimalism and it causes conflict? The first thing that comes to mind for Nicola's question is the acronym that we use, TARA. So it stands for tolerate, accept, respect, appreciate. And this is kind of Josh and I's way of helping people with any tumultuous relationship, not just with, couples who one's a minimalist and one is not a minimalist. This is with friends, family, anyone that you care deeply about in your life, that you want to have a good relationship. This acronym is going to help you so much. So the first step is tolerate. It's a pretty weak virtue, right? When you're out in traffic, especially in LA, someone cuts me off. It's like, I want to get mad. I want to honk my horn and, give them a specific gesture. And I tell myself, like, dude, it's LA. Like, it's a lot of people. This person, maybe they're having a bad day. Maybe maybe their wife's giving birth right now in the passenger seat. There's something like, I try to give them the benefit of the doubt. And what that does is it helps me tolerate that person. So I'm not going to be friends with that person. I'm not going to go out of my way to hang out with them, but I will tolerate their actions. Accepting, well, actually, what I just said about that thought process I go through, it helps me get to acceptance, because I remember when I first moved to Los Angeles, I tried to follow all the traffic laws. I'm like, I'm not going to run red lights. I'm not going to do illegal U-turns. I'm going to I'm going to be, because in Missoula, it's like, it's pretty easy to follow all the traffic laws. But what I realized was that in LA, if you follow the traffic laws, you actually impede traffic. You're actually hurting. You're not, it's me virtue signaling, I will not run this red light. Well, I'm screwing up the rest of the traffic in certain cases. Yes. So I've accepted the circumstances that I'm in, and I've moved on from there. Respect. I guess let's keep going with the traffic thing. Like, I respect the fact that there are 12 million people in LA County. There's a lot of people. And like, we're all trying to live our lives. We all have friends and family we love. We're all trying to get a good meal. We're all trying to, be happy. We're all trying to find our way for joy. And I can respect the fact that really all of us on a very deep level all pretty much want the same things. Now, some people go about it differently. I feel like there's a lot of entitlement, especially when it comes to driving. Although I'll tell you, I got hit, but there was this guy who hit me. I think it was a Mustang, or no, it was a Dodge Charger, whatever it was. It was like one of those, like, kind of middle range, fast sports,
fancy fast cars.
Yeah, fancy loud cars. Yeah, the Fast and Furious kind. And it was real loud.
Was it Vin Diesel?
I wish. I would have just been like, just keep on going, man. I'll take care of this. So this guy was weaving in and out of traffic, and my instinct was like, oh, this guy's a jerk. He's probably a douchebag. And like all these insults start popping up in my head, and I start judging this person about what they're doing. And then I didn't really pay him much attention. I went to go, I changed the lane. And right after I changed the lane, he changed the lane and like basically ran right into my back bumper, because he just wasn't paying attention, wasn't a good driver. Long story short, we pulled over, we got out of the car. He was like the nicest, most calm person. And he was like, oh, I'm so sorry. Like, is your wife okay? And he goes over to Mariah, honey, are you okay? He's like, this car, it's so, because I was like, oh, this is a nice car. He's like, if you had to drive this car, he's like, you would hate it. He's like, I bought this car because I thought it was going to be cool, make me happy. He's telling me why. He's like, but I hate driving this car. And he goes, in LA, he's like, traffic is so stressful, man. He's like, it stresses me out so bad to be in traffic in LA. And it helped me just respect that person a little bit differently and just look at him. And then now I'm at a point, which is the last letter in the acronym is appreciate. I can actually appreciate, again, going with the traffic, the way Los Angeles is. Like, there is a way that LA has to be in order for it to function with 12 million people in its county. So I have gotten to a level of appreciation. So you can do this with other people. You don't have to do this with a city in a traffic. Like, that's just the most benign example I could think of.
Right.
But if you have a person in your life that you're having a hard time getting with, just start with tolerance. And then how can you start to accept them for who they are? How can you even go out of your way to show respect? And maybe, just maybe, you can even appreciate who they are as a person. So this isn't about making your spouse a minimalist.
Right.
This is about loving them. And if you use that acronym TARA, like, you can that's how you show someone that you love them.
One of the problems is you want your spouse to be a minimalist.
Right. Yeah.
And so
step one, stop wanting to change someone.
right. And so one of the things that we often do when we want that is how do we try to change? And we convince them that my point of view is either better or maybe it's just right.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when the self-righteousness comes in. And what you're talking about, this Tara, is the antidote to self-righteousness.
Ooh, yeah.
Because you're tolerating them. That's a decent first step. It's not going to get you very far. Tolerance doesn't do much for you, right?
It helps you go on your day without losing your mind.
Yes. If you stay stuck in tolerance, you're going to be miserable, though. That's why you have to transcend that and eventually get to the appreciation. Now, you can do that with traffic. You can do that with your partner. But more importantly, you can do that with their hoard, right?
Yeah, right.
Earlier in this Maximal episode, we were talking about hoarding versus archiving versus collecting and how most collecting is well-planned hoarding. And yet, we also talked about how my hoard could be a collection for someone else.
Mm-hmm.
And by letting go, but the opposite is also true. Just because you view your partner's things as a hoard because you don't see them as particularly useful to you, well, that doesn't mean they're not useful or beautiful or awe-inspiring or augmenting or amplifying or life-enhancing to your significant other.
Mm.
And when we can respect that, then we can start respecting the individual things. It's like a guitar. If Mariah had a guitar and you didn't play guitar, you wouldn't say, well, that's stupid. Why do you play guitar? That's the wrong thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
You could actually appreciate that pretty quickly.
Yeah. 100%.
It's harder when it becomes when it's a figurine or a sewing kit or a dress collection or whatever it might be. It becomes more difficult. Now, fundamentally, I will say this. You and your partner have different preferences. Now, that's an obvious statement. That's true with everyone. Even Bex and I, who are so similar in terms of our personalities, we have different preferences. We have different ideas of what tidy is even. And that's okay. Now, we've set up some boundaries in our own home. We've agreed together. This is not my rule. It's not her rule. We came up with this together.
Mm-hmm.
We've agreed we don't bring anything new into our home unless we've both said we're going to bring it into the home. Right?
Mm-hmm.
We've also agreed we're not going to get rid of each other's items. I can get rid of all of my own things. I can get down buck naked and own 0 items, and she'll be fine with that.
Yeah.
Well, she might not be okay if I'm just... Yeah, that's the other side of the insanity thing that you were talking about earlier. Yeah. But I could get down to owning functionally nothing.
Sure.
She'd be fine with that.
Yeah.
But it's not about me then determining she needs to live and our daughter Ella needs to live with functionally nothing.
Right.
I can tend to my own garden, and maybe if that garden is beautiful and fruitful enough, she's going to do something similar with her garden as well.
Yeah, absolutely. What
by
else
the
we
way,
got here?
By the way, Nicola, you can find that TERA acronym in Love People Use Things, and there's a whole story in here about how you can begin to tolerate your spouse's stuff, their collection, and maybe even their hoard. So we talk a bit about that. Recognizing you have different preferences. As long as you have similar values, you'll be able to work that acronym together. Now, if your values are different, you want to get clear on your values. There's a values worksheet in the back of the book as well.
Man, talking about our book, it like really, I have to bring myself back to that Orlando meetup we did, the very first Orlando meetup we did. And there was like, it was the couch surfers that were there.
Yeah, I think was it our 4th tour stop or 2nd tour stop ever? 2nd tour stop.
Yeah. And I just felt I didn't want to sell my book, right? I'm like one of the minimalists. Like I can't sell my book, right? There was something that was like blocking me up with that. And so I was always like really trepidatious with talking about the book because I don't want to feel like I'm just trying to sell someone something. But one of the men that were there, he's like, "Hey man, do you really believe in what you guys wrote?" And I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Do you think it's actually going to like help people?" I'm like, "Yeah, of course." He's like, "Then be proud of what you wrote, man." And he's like, "There's no shame in like trying to share something with someone. There's a monetary barrier. That's okay."
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So, but it's funny because like I still have to remind myself of that because we talk about our book so much, but like Dude, this might be the best thing we've ever written, man.
And it's 3 years of pouring our guts onto a page, not knowing if it's going to work. Because I wrote about this toward the end. It's like there were 4 false starts with the next book, whatever it was going to be. Until we finally figured out the path that we wanted to take with this book. And it wasn't a traditional relationship book. It was a relationships book. And it was really a book about healing in a way.
Yeah.
And so it's not about fixing yourself. You're not a machine. It's about healing. And what does healing do? It does leave behind scars. Those scars are some phenomenal stories. And you get to see some of our scars. In fact, you get to see the open wounds before they turned into healing for us in that book. Yeah. Did you enjoy this video? If so, you can listen to full episodes of the Minimalists Private Podcast, available exclusively on Patreon. Visit patreon.com/theminimalists today. Your support keeps our podcast and YouTube channel 100% advertisement free.